Well, we are locked and loaded on a sun-drenched Wednesday afternoon here. Big smiles in our clubhouse studios. We're pumped, Acacia Courtney and Jason Blewett, to start a new racing week, just the one dark day turnaround. But a good time to be a part of the game here at Gulfstream Park.
Absolutely. We had a fabulous President's Day card with all of those starter stakes. It was a lot of fun, and a fun day for Rad Ortiz as well, who had 6 winners, and it looks like he's about to pick up right where he left off. But good week of racing ahead, and we're excited to get back in on a beautiful Wednesday.
Absolutely, as that sets us up at a perfect scene setter, as we like to say, into the Friday card here. We'll run 11, in fact, on Friday afternoon, but aside from having what might be an even bigger jackpot Rainbow Six carryover, I think we're all excited and pumped and waiting to see just what shakes out, not only as far as the win end goes in the 5 legs of the Stronach 5, but just how off that big carryover of nearly $1.70, how big that pool might just swell to.
And we keep saying it, that 12% takeout is so awesome with that Stronach 5. So we have a carryover this week. It's a $1 wager, but hey, find some friends, put a good size ticket together because it's such a low carryover and we're going to have a huge pool. And it's a tough, tricky sequence, but you can find some value in there for sure.
Do love that shot with the Atlantic Ocean and the beach in the background as we begin at chilly Laurel Park Friday afternoon with that first leg A, at with a post rather of 4:35, and we're about an hour and a half, a little over an hour and a half from start to finish as we do wrap things up. And big fields from the get-go, but that cash-out race at Santa Anita Park's a fun little looking allowance race down the hill.
It is indeed 6.5 furlongs downhill, which we don't get to see here at Gulfstream Park at all. So that's pretty fun to be able to do a cash out there. And it looks like a pretty competitive race. We have some competitive races here at Gulfstream with 2 of our local fields in the sequence.
Now, moving forward, a busy day again on this Wednesday, February 20th for Rad Ortiz. He'll ride. He's got calls in 9 of the day's 11 with that first post of a little after 12:35. And off that 6-win Monday President's Day for Mr. Ortiz, he finds himself now 9 in front of Luis Saez, who will ride here. He's got a couple of stakes mounts on Saturday, but overall is suspended through February 27th.
Yeah, and we've seen Rad just take full advantage of that, as he certainly well should, and had just amazing to see how not only is he riding in those upper level races, but the lower claimers, and he gets the most out of his horses. So Luis Saez still very comfortably in second. Tyler Gaffalione covering a lot of ground too, traveling all over the place. You think back to War of Will last weekend, but I mean, just looking at the depth of this jockey colony here.
So much young talent. The average age, Amisael is around my age. I think late 30s, early 40s. I'm 41. But other than that, the average age when you take Amisael, who's top class and world class all the way, I mean, you're probably dealing with about 25, 26 years old, which is just unbelievable. Now, the trainers race, in fact, we have got, and there's a lot of racing left to be had, of course, about 5 weeks left in the championship season, but that said, Jorge Navarro has built himself a nice cushy lead over a 15-time perennial Gulfstream Park leading trainer, Todd Pletcher.
Before opening day, before the claiming crown, I went up to Palm Meadows and spoke to Jorge Navarro, and he said, my goal this year is to get leading trainer. He came down to South Florida just ready to roll, and not even horses being so well spotted, but also a sheer number of horses. The fact of the matter is that, and he had quite a few horses entered in those starter stakes on Monday. So you see horses spotted well, but you also see him coming with a 1, 2, maybe 3 punch in some races.
Now, Jason Service and Chad Brown on that list each have a very imposing short price, way odds-on favorite running on today's card. For Service, Maximum Security in race number 2, and a bit later on, it's Chad with Beautiful Lover, who's going to be certainly less than even money, or 4 to 5 in race number 8. Did you single that horse in your Rainbow Six?
I singled both of them, yes.
Yeah, they both
it looks pretty tough.
Yeah, they both look pretty imposing, and in fact, that's a perfect segue into our Wednesday, February 20th, What's on Tap, where you've got Maximum Security, who I'm assuming if he runs as well and as fast as he has Acacia in his first 2 races, he's a horse definitely bound for graded stakes on the dirt.
He's Triple Crown nominated. He's been sprinting lately. He kind of looks like he might be a stronger sprinter, but be interested to see how Beautiful Lover runs as well. She didn't have the easiest trip in her debut either. I believe Maximum Security was on the same day as my big Italian friend, who both of them looked really logical favorites, and I thought he might have been the more questionable one debuting for 16, but Clearly, that's been no problem.
No, and I'm sure there's a long list of people that are saying, oh, I was going to claim him, and just didn't drop the slip. Well, Jason Service will look to build off those otherworldly numbers, and in terms of the early pick 5, he might just be the universal single. Now, we can't have a carryover in the early 5, but we do have 2, 4, and 5-figure carryovers. In fact, 6 figures, excuse me, for the jackpot rainbow. And don't forget 3,000 plus in the super high 5.
Don't forget about that super high 5. Any race with 7 or more runners. And it does start in race number 1 today with 8 horses. Race 6 on this 11-race card will start today's Rainbow 6.
So maximum security, your single, your strong foundation in the early pick 5. A tricky first race, though, to start things out.
No, it's not an easy first race. And as we look at my ticket, I did go 3 deep. And just a $24 play. That single helped me out a little bit in here. But I used 1, 3, 5 in the opener. And you can even see just very early on in the betting, 5-2 right now on El Plyon for Antonio Sano. I spread in race number 3. I thought that that was a pretty competitive race, too, sprinting on the turf. A couple of wild cards in there. The Christophe Clement runner off the big layoff. And then you've got Ella Brown trying the turf for the first time. Inside 2 in race 4, I think the logical 2 short price horses. I'm going to try to beat Honolulu Express in race 5, and I believe you are too. I'm taking the 7, Not Your Daddy.
Not Your Daddy. Try to pull off an upset in a race where Honolulu Express has just been a different horse of late, sprinting on the turf. Claimed off Steve Coceres last time. Benny Cadilla will run that horse this afternoon with a Rod Ortiz. But again, it all begins in race 1 with these 3-year-old 12-5 maiden claimers. The 1 mile distance to me is a major, major factor in this race. They're all in the same boat. They've all got to go that trip. And outside of the number 5, El Plyon, who's 0 for 7, but has run well at this distance in context, I didn't trust anybody else. I almost picked your top horse, Vin, for the win just because of the connections. What do you like about that horse?
Well, I like that this one's just taking a big drop more than anything. I mean, you look at the race 2 starts back, going 7. It was against $35,000 types, and he was forwardly placed that day. Ended up fading far out of the race. We've got Rod Ortiz, who has actually ridden this horse before, though, on the turf for Elizabeth Dobles, who does a good job. And I just think more than anything, the drop's going to help him today.
Yeah, big drop on that horse. Now, there's more of a forgotten drop, if you will, for the 7, Zuliano, who can't help but be a big price. Horse looks nearly impossible. It certainly has the look of a longer-priced contender in this upcoming.
That's a lot of this field, though.
Huh?
That's a lot of this field.
Oh,
has
no,
impossible look.
That's the thing. Outside of the 5 El Plyon, nobody's really shown up with any sort of consistency. And when you factor that lack of consistency in with the 1-turn mile, which I think will be a pretty demanding trip for these horses in terms of stamina, maybe that opens up the door for a goofier-looking horse on paper. Now, this one is by Drosselmeyer, who was a Belmont winner and a Breeders' Cup Classic winner. Maybe that'll kick in today in terms of just being able to stay this mile trip. And do keep in mind, this horse ran once in July, wasn't that big of a price here first time out in special weight company, and since then has had a race on the turf and a 5-furlong race in the slop, just trying to get a little cute and a little wacky here in the first.
And this is the place to do it for sure, and you'll get a nice price for sure, 15-1 right now. And Chad Summers has had some drop-down runners over the past couple of weeks that have actually run very, very well.
And it seems like they didn't get bet despite dropping down, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so definitely one to keep an eye out for.
All right, let's move on to the second race. Maximum Security looks like he might just be one of the 2 key Wednesday box office stars here at Gulfstream, as he will put that unbeaten 2-for-2 record on the line going from the rail. He faces slightly better, but it's hard to argue with how dominant he's been.
He really has been. He debuted for 16, as we mentioned before. He got an 81 buyer speed figure, breaking his maiden for 16,000, which is pretty impressive in and of itself. Then came back on the wet track last time, moved forward, was not in for the tag, and now he's going to be kind of moving in that right direction. It looks like maybe they didn't quite realize exactly what they had, and were pleasantly surprised, I'm sure.
1, 3, 4, 6 for us. Big 1-5 favorite or thereabouts, 2-5 or so in the second with Maximum Security. Third race, turfing here. We've got some older filly mare maiden special weight horses battling 5 furlongs, and a race in which got a couple of key turnbacks, including the one Meet Me Online on the rail, and certainly the number 2, Daddy's Melody. We've also got Coochie Daddy, who's coming back off a long layoff. In fact, well over a year since this filly by Street Cry was in action. I'm hoping, despite the lengthy layoff, and by the way, Christophe Comont does have 3 wins on the turf with year-plus layoffs, but I'm hoping perhaps this horse is like the truest turf sprinter of the bunch here, you know?
Yeah, she very well could be. She's well bred. She's out of a multiple graded stakes winning mare who was not a turf runner, but this one comes out of a long layoff. They don't drop her. She comes back to the turf sprint, and certainly this is a barn who does very well not only on the turf but also with layoff runners just in general.
Yep.
So I thought that she could certainly be a wild card in here. I was intrigued by Meet Me Online, though. I've really thought that she might appreciate sprinting. I also like that she's third off the layoff now. She's a half to Bucaro, but I think that she's the one that's probably going to be a little bit better in the family, going a bit shorter if she can kind of settle and wrangle in that speed a little bit more.
And she'll come out of the same race as the favorite. Not a heavy favorite. I do think Daddy's Melody, by virtue of 2 respectable efforts on the turf, one going shorter than this, or certainly shorter than her last race in late September at Belmont, she might be slightly the horse to beat in a real sort of hodgepodge type field.
It really is. It's a little bit all over the place, and you could even tell that just by our picks in here. I thought Ella Brown could be interesting trying the turf. Just looked like a little bit of a wise guy look getting on the grass in here, but Daddy's Melody ran fine 2 starts back, though it was a yielding turf at Belmont.
Let's move on to the 4th race. We go with a shortened field of 5, in fact, and there's very few scratches on the card, which is always a good thing, obviously. But you can take out the 5 Hollywood Strike, so we don't get the rematch between the brothers. Hollywood Star, the only one out of Hollywood Story who goes postward here. Now, that scratch may help out the 4 Positivist, who's got early speed, along with the number 1 Benjamin. I got to tell you, Acacia, I struggle with this race because some of the better-looking class-dropping horses are more one-pace, plodding grinder types. I opted to just go a different direction, and that was with the speeds.
Yeah, I don't know if I didn't know what to do with Benjamin. I mean, you look at this horse who won for 10,000 by 11.5 at Gulfstream West in his debut. We haven't seen him since. That was November 14th. He's a gelding now. There might have been some issues there, but he does come back for 30, so I guess a little bit of a vote of confidence here, though he is still in for the tag after that big maiden score. I liked Portal. I like him a little bit less with the scratch of Hollywood Strike because he's just not going to have as much pace to run at.
Yeah, you hope Benjamin and Positivist hook up here. We'll see what happens. But just to put the ribbon around for trainer Ian Wilkes on his gelding by Arch dropping down in Portal, this is a barn, and it's good to see these allowance to claiming numbers when they're robust, as in this case at 6 for 20 for 30%, and we're talking 1 to 2 months between starts. To me, it just shows a trainer that really has his or her finger on the pulse as to the current condition and where their horses ultimately belong. And I guess we don't expect anything less from a classy gentleman and a very good horseman in Ian Wilkes.
Absolutely, and it's been a while since this horse has seen the winner's circle, and the running style certainly, as he said, leaves a bit to be desired, but I thought that this one kind of might have had a little bit of the class edge.
All right, let's move on to the 5th race here. We're turfing. We go 5 furlongs. These are 3-year-old $25,000 claimers, and both of us taking a slight knock against, or at least slight stab against the number 3 Honolulu Express, who's off the claim for Benny Cadilla, who just in terms of profile and numbers just doesn't have the same kind of cachet as perhaps a Steve Closeris. I mean, that's just the reality. That said, he may have claimed a horse who clearly has just come into his own sprinting on the turf.
Yeah, he really has just turned the corner for sure. And as we look back at this last race, this was, of course, with the former connections, but I thought it was a big effort from him. And he does pick up a Rado Ortiz first off the claim for Benny Cadilla, and no knocking what Tyler Gaffleon did with this horse. I thought he rode him perfectly last time out, but he was inside while Marcelino, who was the number 7 there, came to battle with him. Almost perfect as the 3 closing on the outside, and I thought Honolulu Express was very game to hold off that foe.
I'm going to take a horse in Felon who's going to be a bit of a price, who's run hard, who's been chewed up in some pretty fast-paced duels, hoping. This might be a tall order, but hoping he's just a little faster with the 4% rider on Marcelino, that he can get the jump on him and maybe get brave this afternoon. I think this horse has run sneaky good on the turf. Again, he's been involved in some very taxing issues and hasn't fully quit whatsoever.
Yeah, he's been consistent. I probably should have had him in the top 4 there. I took a stab with the 7 Nacho Daddy because, A, I like saying the name, and number 2, I think that this horse has only ever run against a bit bit tougher on the turf at Tampa, and he ran a solid fourth that day. He was very keen to show that early speed. I like to see Javier Castellano in the saddle. I think he's going to fit this horse well and help him settle a bit.
All right, Javier selective, but he's been doing a good job along with his agent, my friend JP, throughout the winter meet here at Gulfstream Park as we are just getting warmed up. 5 down, 6 to go. Chasing that pot of gold after this.
Whether you're at home or at the track, have a stake in the race when you bet with ExpressBet. Sign up for an ExpressBet online betting account and receive up to a $500 sign-up bonus.
Amazing achievements for Pennsylvania breds on the world stage. Thanks to Finest City, Unique Bella, and Shamrock Rose, PA joins Kentucky as the only state in the past decade to breed Eclipse Award champions 3 straight years. Add that to our unmatched incentives. Plus, our Racehorse Development Fund can only be used to support PA breeding and racing. Why breed anywhere else? This is Brian Sanfratello. Go to PABred.com and see why Pennsylvania is the premier place to breed and race.
About 45 minutes out from race 1. It is a gorgeous Wednesday, second half of February, well underway, in fact. Acacia and Jason with you. Second segment of this Wednesday edition of Gulfstream today. And for good reason, as we pick up steam, we've got 6 figures in the Rainbow Six.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. We've got a couple of carryovers, key carryovers this week. The Jackpot Rainbow Six being one of them. Of course, we're looking ahead to that Stronach 5 carryover on Friday. But 119,000 right here, and I'm using 2 horses in race number 6. The Mighty Judge might be another very short price favorite that could be tough to beat on today's card. 3 deep in race number 7, which is a race I'm very much looking forward to. And then I'm just going to single Beautiful Lover, second time out for Chad Brown, taking the chalk there, and then using a little bit of a spread method in the last 3 races. But a really good sequence today. So 32-40 play for me.
And George Weaver, I mean, talking about Javier being more selective and just doing a good job at picking the right ones to get involved with. I think George Weaver's done that as well throughout the winter meet, saddling just over a dozen horses with 3 wins, 3 seconds, and a couple of thirds. And it does look like, despite that crummy inside post, this is the spot, but it's also now or never for the one, the Mighty Judge.
Yeah, it was, we backtracked to that race last time out. They added the blinkers last time. He was bet down to 70 cents to the dollar. There he is as we pick it up at the quarter pole, the number 2. Tyler Gaffalione going to be aboard. And you could see it looked like he really didn't need those blinkers. He was a little bit turning his head. I don't love to see that on the racetrack. The horse in front of him, though, the one clearly was drifting, and I think it might have been a little bit of indecisiveness as to where he was going to go next, opting to go inside. He ends up getting beat by 3/4 of a length. Still very kind of workmanlike effort, a little bit green off the layoff still. We'll see if he gets some improvement today, but more than anything, I just think he meets the right field.
Definitely, and the main danger you might surmise is the number 2, Tropical Tapestry, who's just run really well in his last couple. This is where it gets interesting. He's completely unknown and untested staying this trip.
He has to stretch out in distance, and so we might see some extra speed from him with Irad Ortiz, who's ridden him in his last 2 races, and Tammy Levy does a good job with a limited number of starters.
Yeah, no question. Race number 7, meanwhile, a nice little 3-year-old $50,000 allowance optional claimer. You can scratch the 3. We'll start that late pick 5, and I'm pretty happy. And this is, if you like turf racing in South Florida, you've come to the right place. There's only 1 dirt race in the entire late pick 5 sequence, and the turf races, even with Chad's Beautiful Lover, who, not to call her a layover, but she looks very, very solid as a universal single in the 8th race. But the supporting turf races in the mix are outstanding, including a matchup in which I have a 3-horse spread, and the 3 favorites between Jorge Abreu and the 1 Collins Avenue, the Deuce False Info for Todd Pletcher, and the 7 Willing to Speed. Trying to get lucky, a $24 play for me to cash things out with a couple of horses in the 11th race, our Wednesday nightcap. But again, 1, 2, 7 to start things out. You've got 3 horses, in fact, Acacia, rematching out of the English B allowance race, which I think was a pretty good field.
race.
Yeah, that's a good race in terms of you know, a starter optional claimer, it's a drop in class for the likes of False Info and the 7 Willing to Speed. And just in the case and in the argument that Willing to Speed will likely run a little better than that current 6th at almost 25 to 1, how do you like the run John Kimmel, veteran trainer who has spent many a winter down here at Gulfstream Park? His horses have been running quite well for himself over the last 30 calendar days, at 4 for his last 10, and they've been paying some good prices as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Big ROI there of more than $14, and a great stat to look at because this is a barn that's kind of sometimes flies a little bit beneath the radar, but obviously a barn that does a great job, and I'm in an agreement with you. My biggest concern about this horse is that he's the type of runner that just comes from way out of it. There is some speed in here for sure, but I like this race quite a bit, and I think that Collins Avenue is going to be perhaps the right one in here. And as I pulled his last replay, because while a couple of the others in this race have already faced winners, he's facing winners for the first time today. That'll be the challenge. But I thought that his maiden win right here at Gulfstream on January 2nd was very professional. It was a perfect ride by Red Ortiz to shift outside. He clearly has a lot of horse left underneath of him. He finished up really well. He kind of surged to the lead late, and he had a couple of closers coming to try to tackle him. But I think he has that tactical running style to get a good trip from the inside post.
And could have or we could have a budding rivalry with Collins Avenue and False Info. They were 1-2 here way back. What was that? The first full week of racing this meet back on December 5th.
It's like 2 years ago.
It does feel like a long time ago, and that was the first race on that opening Wednesday card. And clearly False Info was ready to roll with Louis S., second time out, and that was only the debut of Collins Avenue. So to me, the question is False Info a slightly better horse, or is Collins Avenue leapfrog this horse, or have they both just improved so much where they may just hook up at crunch time and we could have a good race with John Kimmel trying to pick them up in third?
I think we will. I really am excited about this race, and it looks like it's kind of those 3 horses, and then I included just the speed of Junipero Avenue. I think that that's kind of the main key there, but I think that the 3 horses we touched on are the main ones.
And Cherie DeVoe's got a maiden running earlier in the day. You've got Jorge Abreu with the 1 Collins Avenue, and 2 former students and certainly former teammates of trainer Chad Brown, who is starting to, create a situation where you've got former assistants who are out on their own doing a great job. And Chad, in fact, in the mix here with the number 4, Beautiful Lover, who rejoins Florida Breds or joins Florida Breds for the first time. And we'll take a couple of different looks at her January 12th racing debut. Yes,
as we pull this race, I wanted to go from the beginning because I think that this was going to be the main key for her. And as we pick up the replay there just out of the starting gate, she was the number 1 that day, and she sent from the inside post, but a lot of others had the same idea. So as we pick it up there, we're going to go all the way into the first turn. So you can see the 12 on the outside ends up sending, and it's just kind of like a cavalry charge into the first turn. She's down inside for a first-time starter. That can be a very intimidating position as there's a line of 5 horses trying to get the lead here when she's on the inside. So she ends up settling just a little bit off of it. Her jockey that day, Javier Castellano, making the decision to take her out. Then she's forced to go wide, Jason. So she never really had an easy trip in her debut.
No, she did not. And look at the winner, actually. Red and white Klarovich colors. Here comes Connectivity. Needless to say, trained by Chad Brown. Now, roaring up on the outside is, of course, the winner. We've got Chad, who just gets picked off in deep stretch there, running a very, very solid 4th.
And another note on this one, this was a lot of money for a filly by Arch.
Yes.
$475,000. I saw her. She is a big, scopy filly, so you can only imagine that she's going to improve with experience.
You would think, and not to belabor the point, she's a half to Zevo, of course, who Chad trained, a New York bred by True Direction a few years back, who he won a whole bunch of, certainly New York bred stakes, and even won the Grade 2 Suburban at Belmont Park. He was more of a dirt horse. You would imagine Beautiful Lover's a bit better on the turf. 410 for you and I if she gets beat. Tappity, who's got a boy, does she have a pedigree for
Ooh,
days.
yeah.
That Tap It My Typhoon is just, oh, that's so sweet there. But she'll be making her turf debut for Mark Casse.
Though My Typhoon has not been a great producer so far.
Yep.
3 out of the 4 foals are winless. The one that did win on the turf. But some questions there. But John Velasquez up for Mark Casse.
Yeah, Johnny V, I think, is only mount on today's card. He rides here today. He's got one at Tampa on Friday, and we're in the mix and in the middle of drawing Saturday's 12-race card, anchored by the House Hope. Moving on to race number 9, our only dirt race in the late pick 5, and it is our last race on the main, coming up with a field of 8 and an older 2-lifetime 12-5 claimer. Dunk just could not stay, and with me on his back, he just couldn't go a mile. It was just too far for him. I'm hoping his best isn't way, way, way in the rearview mirror. He's got to win one of these races after losing twice for Boogie off the claim, or once for Gold and once for Boogie, 9-5 and 2-1 in his last couple. Valdaco, the other horse I like for Maker, is taking a big plummet, and you're going to try to shake things up here. Is this a speed play in Cerro Una Volta?
Yes, it is, and I think that this one, switching back to the dirt for Juan Avila, I think that this horse is maybe better than his form might show on paper. He's got to step up, I think, to be competitive with a couple of the other horses in here, but he has a recent good dirt race, which some of the others just don't.
All right, turf where it's at for the late double, older filly mare, Florida bred, allowance optional claimer types in race number 10. I'm 4 deep here in my late pick 5. This race really gave me fits. There's likely going to be some speed to this, to the outside anyway, with the 9 who I picked, who I think is a better turf sprinter as she gets back on the grass with a rod for Mike Trombetta in the 9 Salt Pond. You're likely going to get an up-close trip as well on the engine from the 10 Band of Angels, and clearly sizing up at potential race flow, not lost on you, taking a pretty powerful but a deep closer in Bright Ben as well.
Yeah, you like Boogie in race number 9. I'm going to take that barn in race number 10. Second off the claim with a drop back down in class. And I just think that this horse, first and foremost, is better on the turf. You're going to get a price on her. She is a late running type by Justin Phillip, but I think she's going to get plenty of race flow in her favor. I also thought that the 4 All About Stella was interesting. She has some solid turf form, but this is the type of race that's just very wide open. I could have used, I think, 6 horses in here.
You would imagine luck, and if one thing goes wrong in these turf sprints in general, normally you have a tough time winning, but with a field as evenly matched as this one, racing luck is really going to come to the fore. My deep closer, if this race does fall apart, the 5 Taylor's in Orbit, who's really an overachiever, and a nice little hard-trying Florida bred here by Corfu, who always seems to put in a good wide run.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brian Hernandez is going to be in the saddle today, who's been on a good run this meet down at Gulfstream.
Yeah, good to see both Brian and Chris Landeros doing well, giving a good name to Kentucky. Let's wrap things up. Meanwhile, race number 11, 3-year-old 20K claimers in the nightcap. We end the day going 5 furlongs at a race in which the 4 Jam in Jimtown was the former Troy Wismer horse, now with trainer Jorge Navarro. We both think, I didn't pick the horse, but I could understand someone saying, look, 0 for 3, but still the horse to beat here in the last race.
I think that he's the horse to beat. I mean, you look at that only turf race 2 starts back, and he was saddled with post 11 going 5/8. That's never an easy task, and he still ran okay. Last time out, the race was taken off the turf, and he was fine. So second off the claim, I think it's go time here getting on the grass.
And Twisted Licorice, Ronnie's horse. If you're not aware, if you want to get Ron Nicoletti a birthday present, a gift for the holidays,
Love some licorice.
The man loves licorice, and this horse, much like Ronnie, loves the turf, and he'll be back on the grass this afternoon for David Fox and Tyler Gaffleone. Is the Fuzzy, the 11, thinking of Charles towards the outside, who is saddled with the post towards the outside, but just second out, 50 to 20 for Eddie Pleasa?
He just has a look to him, doesn't he? On that drop-in class, Jose Ortiz in the saddle, putting the blinkers on. He's got to deal with the post, but maybe if he's going to be coming from off the pace a bit, he could be an interesting one.
All right, sounds good. As we take a little time out here on this live Wednesday edition of Gulfstream Today, Pete Aiello, not many scratches, but he'll be joining you in just a few moments. And then it's Ronnie, you, me, downstairs all day long.
Sounds good. We're glad to have you with us.
The best chance for success begins with a solid foundation. At Hardacre Farm, early personal one-on-one care starts the journey to becoming a champion. Bred to leading stallions, our mares represent the highest standards. Hardacre Farm's signature in the breeding industry. Based in Ocala, Florida, breeder and owner Amy Tarrant has inspired excellence throughout her entire career. In your quest for success, start with Hardacre Farm, breeding the champions of tomorrow.